Hello and welcome to our Conversations with Corrections podcast. I'm Richard Piatt, Communications Director here at the Utah Department of Corrections, joined by Executive Director Jared Garcia. Today we're going to be focusing on looking back at 2025 and some of the progress that we've made on some of our goals. Jared, it's kind of interesting because you spend most of your time looking forward and planning for the future. We're going to look back a little bit and see how working toward the future interfaces with what we've already accomplished. How would you say, just in general terms, we've done over the last year or so about moving the department forward and in terms of what your goals you set out to achieve at the beginning of the year and how we're doing on that?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We are constantly looking forward and thinking about opportunities for the organization to improve and elevate, and ways to improve the environment for our employees and for those people that we're supervising. And when you're in our positions, you forget to look back sometimes. And so it's important at the end of the year that we do look back and we celebrate the accomplishments of our team and our people, and even of those people that are under our care that have successfully re-entered our communities. That's a big success. So as we started to talk about some of these things, we realized there were too many things to talk about in just one podcast. And so we decided we would break it up within different sections. And it's great to have Spencer here to talk about the things that have happened within DPO, because there are a lot. It's certainly been a challenging year or a couple of years because of staffing and overtime and budget and a lot of different things that we had to do. But I'm just so proud of this department and the progress that we're making, and we are well on our way to being the best correctional agency in the country.
Well, I think one of the significant issues that we're always facing, that every state agency is facing, is how the department operates in terms of its budget. How has this last year been as far as getting our needs met with all the challenges that we face and the duties that we're bound to perform?
Yeah, it's definitely been a challenge because, as many know, we've had a shortfall in our operations and maintenance budget, and that specifically impacts prison operations. And so we've really asked a lot of our leadership and our employees. Again, while it's not healthy for people to be on mandatory overtime, and we recognize that was a challenge for staff, significantly reducing it the way we have has created maybe an unplanned impact on some of our staff, and that's an example of a challenge that we have to face. But it has, I think, positioned us to be stronger in the future because we've had to really self-evaluate, look at contracts, look at how we spend things, look at our purchasing processes, look at our entire organization as a whole, and make sure that we have the right chain of command and structure to be efficient and effective, to really evaluate technology and where we needed to improve their training. So we've really taken a deep dive into every aspect of the organization and looked for ways to become more efficient and effective. And in turn, we've been able to go to the legislature, to the governor's office, and show them that we are being efficient and effective, and which in turn helps us to earn their trust when we do go ask for the things that we need in the upcoming session.
Well, a lot of people think of correctional institutions as far as, having people behind bars, but technology, in fact, is an important part of what we're working on. What kinds of things are we working on? What can you talk about as far as the way that we're monitoring what's going on at the prison, what's going on with the residents as they're released, what's going on with the way that we operate? We've got all those things kind of underway right now, don't we?
Oh, yes, we do. We're very excited about the Iris Center. I think we were able to talk about that at the last podcast, and we put information out about the center, and it's up and running. We're leveraging technology that leverages artificial intelligence and allows us to listen to every phone call that's coming into our facility. And I think that those capabilities are only going to expand. We're using technology that helps us to be more efficient in our report writing, not only from a time aspect, but also from a quality aspect. It helps maybe those with a little bit less experience to ask the questions that they should be asking. And then we've recently entered into a contract that's going to help us with case management and assessment, and we really think that's going to help us to be far more effective as far as the assessment piece and conducting those assessments to fidelity. But really the important part of this is actually managing people from the point when they enter our system to the point where they re-enter society, and giving us the information and the data that we need to manage them properly and effectively. So we're very excited about all these technologies. There's going to be more to come as we continue to roll these out, because clearly there has to be training, and we need to educate every person in this department on why this technology helps them in their job function. But so much going on. Our technology and innovation team is really moving full speed ahead to replace OTRAC. We're getting support from the legislature and the governor's office, and we're really excited to start to share those things as they roll out.
So I'm kind of smiling a little bit, because we talk about, instituting technology, and a lot of people feel like, well, yeah, just go out and buy something and plug it in, but it's not so easy, is it?
No.
I mean, it's like a lot of the changes that we're talking about, and Spencer Turley is joining us here too. You can attest to the fact that making any kind of change within our operations is sort of like steering a battleship off of a target or something like that, or away from a hazard. It takes a little bit of time, doesn't it?
Absolutely, it does take time, and it's worth investing the time. But nothing moves fast, especially when it comes to technology and replacing the technology stack we have now and implementing new ideas. It's a lengthy process.
So, what kinds of things are prison operations working on? We talked about a few of them yesterday. You've got quite a list of things that you're. Once I started getting the ball rolling, to have you list a couple of things you were working on, I couldn't stop you.
Sure. Yeah, there's a number of things happening. And looking back on the year, I think one of the big ones that people have been talking about and working on since USCF opened was getting dialysis happening inside the prison. For years, we've been transporting inmates off-site to a dialysis clinic. We've incurred overtime costs. It's been a lengthy process, and finally this year we're offering dialysis in the prison again, and it's been a great partnership between us and Correctional Health Services to do that. And it's also a big deal from a public safety standpoint. And so that's one of the big successes we do want to highlight from 2025 that we're excited about. And in the transportation world, we've been very mindful of the risks that our transportation officers experience every day. One of the most dangerous things that we do is transport inmates outside the secure perimeter of the prison. So as we talked about this, one of the ways that and it's pretty simple, frankly, but one of the ways that we've talked about increasing security is by giving our transportation officers unmarked vehicles to drive. For years and years, they've been driving around with Department of Corrections labeled on the car, and we're proud of where we work and what we do, but we also don't want to necessarily advertise unnecessarily which car inmates are riding in as we're driving around town.
Yeah,
so just
sense.
As one other point of helping increase our officer safety and public safety, we're moving towards giving our transportation team unmarked vehicles as well, which is a good thing.
So when we talk about new correctional standards, that's something else that we've tackled this year. What does that mean, Jared? When we say new correctional standards, what kinds of standards, and how important is it that we do that?
I mean, it can mean a few things in different aspects of the organization. I think Spencer, when he's thinking about correctional standards, and what I'm thinking about the core competencies of the job. There are certainly, Spencer probably will elaborate on the actual correctional standards, but we have a young workforce here, and because we had 400 plus vacancies when we arrived a couple of years ago, and the department has struggled with staffing for many years, and so it's important that we teach our new staff how to do this job correctly, maybe even a little bit differently than it's been done in the past from the point they enter our system. And that creates a heavy lift on training and on leadership and on the individuals that are joining our agency to be a sponge and be willing to learn every single day. But it's an amazing opportunity for us to truly do things a little bit differently, to do it the Utah way, and which we think will be the national way at some point. And so that, for me, that's when I think about correctional standards, I'm thinking about our people and how we do the job every single day. There's a whole correctional standards piece in regard to our facilities, and I think I'll let Spencer touch on that a little bit.
You bet. Thank you. So the correctional standards piece, that falls under our Safety Risk and Standards Bureau. Brian Kenny is the chief of that. He's our chief safety officer. And he has a team of 5 people that go out and inspect our facilities, both prisons, our community correctional centers, and they also go into the 20 county jails that we contract with and inspect the facility operations to ensure they're meeting the standards. For the last roughly 4 or 5 months, those standards have been under revision to enhance them and make them far better than they are now. They weren't bad, but we're making them better. And so we've put those out to our counterparts with the jail commanders and the sheriffs. The wardens and their teams have copies of them. They're currently being reviewed and revised. And so coming up July 1 of 2026, we'll implement these new standards across the board in our facilities, the jails, and the community correctional center. So we're excited to have that change coming.
So when you're talking about these standards, are these standards for how our employees handle our population, and does the standards also extend to the people that are inside, as well as to our employees? Is it all encompassing? Is all that factored in together?
It is factored in. A lot of it deals with basically the facility operations and making sure that they're safe and secure. Some of them will require, do you have a policy for this? Does your policy allow for this or not for that? And so some of it's policy based, and some of the monitors are going around and making sure that we're doing things the way that we say we should be doing things. It's different than an audit. They're just ensuring that we're meeting the standards that have been set across the board.
So I think with a lot of the programs that are underway right now, it might be an appropriate time to kind of talk about that, because my impression going out and visiting is that it's not necessarily, in some of these cases, it's not necessarily what people think a prison is. Some of these programs are innovative. The Defy graduation, for example, there was one that happened last week. It was exciting, and there was a heavy participation and kind of therapeutic element to it. I mean, those kinds of programs, I don't know if a lot of people realize, in spite of the work that we've done, that those kinds of things exist. So we've got some work ahead of us too. But describe how important you think those kinds of things are, for people who qualify.
Well, they're critical. At the end of the day, I think our staff's going to hear us talk about this. 95% of the people in our custody are going to be in our community, and they're going to be our neighbors. And we want them to leave prison one time and not come back to prison. And unfortunately, that's not the case right now. And so the programming, the education piece, the jobs piece, it's all included in what we want. We want safe environments within our facilities. Staff's going to hear us talk a lot about moving the middle, but really what that means is we're going to have tiered housing, tiered privileges that's conducted in an intentional way, so we can separate the predators and the bullies from those who truly want to change their lives. That's the middle. And we're going to help those people to get these opportunities that'll help them to change their lives. And if the predators and bullies want to join the middle, we're going to allow for them to do that. We're going to create opportunity for them to do that. But staff is going to play a tremendous role in all of this as well. So one thing we've been saying over the last little bit is, as I walk around the facility, I ask officers how things are going, and I keep hearing the term, I'm just a correctional officer. And in order for us to be successful in this work, they have to think of themselves a little bit differently. I want to see them remove the word just, and I want to see them add the word and after the correctional officer. So I am a correctional officer, and I do this, and I do this, because they are really the key to the success of our inmates and helping them to achieve their goals and leave here and never come back.
Spencer, how do these kinds of programs, how is it changing the way that our officers are trained? Is that also evolving, the way that they're able to interact with the population? Are there security issues even still? And do they think if they're do the officers move around and go to different units, so they have to think about a population in one building differently than another? What are the ways that the training has changed over the last year or over the last couple of years?
Sure, yeah, training's always evolving, and it should always be evolving. If we're training on the exact same things in the same way every year, that would be a problem. One thing we never want to do is be stagnant in training. So when it comes to supervising inmates, one of the things that we've been looking at that the Training Academy is working to incorporate is more of a dynamic security model. We already have a direct supervision model, and a lot of times direct supervision is focused more on a facility design where an officer can be in a section with an inmate and there's a desk there, and we worry about those kind of things. And it's not bad, but the dynamic security model is more about the officer-inmate interaction and more of a safety component and less about the physical design. And so our training academy is working to not only enhance and improve our communications training and officer safety training, but just the overall training package that our cadets are receiving in the academy, and then what's being offered to our current staff through in-service training.
Are there things to touch on that have to do with our probation and parole standards, or any of the way that we're operating there? What kinds of things, Jared, have we done in the last year to move ourselves forward on those areas?
Yeah, I mean, similar as within APNP and DPO or LEB, every part of our organization is we're going to constantly look for opportunities to improve. We're going to hopefully as we advance technology, we're going to be better at analyzing data and information to make better decisions. But training is a huge portion of this, and really teaching our staff. We have amazing staff, by the way, and they do care. But again, understanding that they play a huge role in the criminal justice system. So it's striking a balance between accountability and compassion and helping people to be successful. And so our staff, our leaders in those areas are doing a phenomenal job. I think our training division is doing a phenomenal job because we just talked about data. We actually presented this morning to some legislators. And when we talked about some of the challenges, or we've seen the challenges related to parole violators, our adult probation and parole agents have significantly impacted that population by, I think it was about 8%. They've improved parole violators. Is that accurate, Spencer?
Yeah, it's a little less than 8%, but we're doing substantially better than we were as far as the people that are returning to prison on technical violations and just the overall number of parole violators returning. APMP is doing a phenomenal job of what they're doing in the community to address technical violations outside of just returning everybody to prison or managing by a warrant. So the parole violators from 2023 to 2025, I think has come down about 4%. But if you look at it as a holistic number, I don't remember the exact number off the top of my head, but I want to say it was over 500 offenders difference in the way that APMP is working with people to address violations outside of just saying, let's incarcerate everybody. It's quite impressive.
So both of you have worked in law enforcement for a number of years. You know how the law interfaces with offenders and what their reaction typically is when they get caught up in the system. Is your experience come into play when it comes to your dedication to these programs that we're talking about? How was it when you first started in law enforcement, and how is that coloring the way that you want things to go here at the Department of Correction?
Yeah, I mean, I want to hear Spencer's perspective because Spencer's worked in corrections his whole career, so he's ahead of the curve when it comes to this because of. We've talked about this. I believe corrections has been undersold nationally, and we need to do a better job of that. But yeah, as a young officer, my primary goals were to find people that were committing crimes and arrest them and investigate those crimes and put them in prison if it was necessary, or put them in jail if it was necessary. And as I evolved throughout my career and got involved in more in-depth projects like Operation Rio Grande is probably the best example, and I really equate that challenge and compare that to people that are in prison because they're very similar, the challenges and the reason they're in that position. We have to create safe spaces for people first for them to have opportunity. If you just think about your own life, if you don't feel safe in your day-to-day life, you're not going to be focused on your job or the other things that even enjoying your life. You're going to focus on safety first. And so my perspective has changed in the fact that we have to create safe spaces. We still have to hold people accountable. I will never change my perspective on that because there still is a portion of the population that needs to be in prison, unfortunately. But I think a lot of the people that are in prison, they made a mistake. Maybe they made a few mistakes. Maybe substance abuse drove them to make those mistakes. And we have a unique opportunity to help them to reimagine what their lives can look like and to achieve their goals and to kind of do a reset. And again, we want that. They're going to be our neighbors. We want them to be successful. We don't want them coming back to prison, and we don't want them to create victims again.
Now you have to think about that. When you were in law enforcement, you just dropped them off at the jail and then you kind of went on with your day, didn't you? Now you have to deal with the other side.
Well, absolutely. And that's why it's important that all of us in this organization, specifically us in leadership, do a really great job of telling the story of the people of the Utah Department of Corrections. That's why we're lucky to have you and our entire comms team here, because if we don't tell our story to the public, that's all they're going to think is these are forgotten people that deserve to be in prison, and that's it. That's the finality to it. But that's not the truth. We need to help these people, the majority of them, to find some redemption in their lives.
That's right. Spencer, I'm interested in your perspective. How have things changed since you first started in corrections and especially, culminating in this last year?
Sure. I think the biggest thing, and Jared just mentioned it, we're doing a far better job at telling our story. A lot of the times, I think in years past, we've been really good at being reactive to what's happening. And in the last year or two, we've been far more proactive in getting out there and telling our story as a department and letting people see how we can truly contribute. Director Garcia mentioned Rio Grande, and I think to some extent that was a turning point for us, that we had APMP agents that were downtown in the public eye working with allied law enforcement agencies, and truly started to make a difference. And people started to realize, hey, Department of Corrections is bringing more to the table than we realized. And so you look at what's happening in the community and then go into the prison side. And you mentioned the Defy graduation, and whether it's Defy, whether it's a high school graduation or some other program that we're doing, anytime somebody comes into the prison, without fail, almost every time somebody mentions how impressed they are with the operation, they didn't know that this is what it was like, it's different than what they imagined, it's not like the movies, whatever comment it is that they make, they're very impressed and very surprised at the good job that we do as a department. And so I think that's really what's changing, is that we're bringing a more positive aspect to, we have fantastic officers and professional staff doing a really good job, and people are now starting to see that because we're telling the story.
That's right. And I think we're being recognized as well. We recently won an award for our data-driven community supervision, for example, those kinds of things. How important is it for us to be a model for other states? And where would you, Jared, like to see the Utah Department of Corrections when it's thought of in the Department of Corrections nationwide, the systems?
For me, it's very important. I say it all the time that we're going to be the best correctional agency in the country, and I believe that. And I believe it because of the state that we live in. We have tremendous support from our governor, from our legislature. We have the most amazing people that work for the Utah Department of Corrections. They're talented, they're passionate, they care about our mission, our vision, our values. So it's critical for us to get out in front of other states and talk about what we're doing, because we have an opportunity not only to shape our state, but to shape policy related to criminal justice nationally. And also internally within our state, I believe we have the opportunity to impact the criminal justice in a much broader way. But in order for people to welcome you into the room and to allow you to impact things, they have to see results from your agency. And we really are starting to turn the corner and demonstrate extremely positive results. And as we do that more and more, people are going to trust us more. They're going to believe in our philosophies. They'll buy into it. And I think in the end, we'll see a safer Utah because of it.
Yeah, Spencer, how do you feel about the way things are going? You probably remember when you first started, you thought all the time, or you and your coworkers probably thought, we need to change this, and we need to do this, and we need to start doing this. Now you're the guy that's in charge of making those decisions. Do you feel like you're able to make a difference, and you're finally able to get some headway on some of those things?
Sure, I think we're absolutely making a difference. I will say that there's always things we can do to improve and get better on. The list of things that we want to improve is just as long as the things that we are improving, right? It's not like, okay, we made this one, now let's everybody just sit back and hang out. As soon as we finish one thing, we're moving on to the next. But you can definitely see the progress that's being made across the board, across the entire department, in all divisions. And so there's definitely headway being made with a lot more progress to go.
Right. Well, I think with our experience, I mean, we're dealing with human beings here. Human beings are not perfect. Some of them are less perfect than others. But we're really trying to humanize the department, for the people that are open to accepting that kind of assistance in their lives. Would you say that's a proper way of summing things up?
100%. Not everybody is going to be receptive of that, or maybe not today, but maybe they will be tomorrow. But like I've said over and over again, I think the majority of people in our facility do want to change their lives, and it's up to us to provide that space and opportunity for them and empower our staff to be problem solvers. And I think, that's what I would want especially our young staff to know, is that you are more than a corrections officer. You really are the backbone and the backstop of the criminal justice system, and the impact that you can have throughout your career at the Utah Department of Corrections is really immeasurable. And don't waste the opportunity to make that impact.
And I think, Spencer, would you agree that enabling that kind of sentiment from the top and letting it trickle down to those officers is extremely important?
100%. I think if we can remember the mindset of we're about people and not things, we'll continue down the right path. There's a whole lot of things that we have to worry about, but it's the people that make the things work. These programs that we're talking about, there's people behind them that are either participating in the program or making it work. So from a leadership perspective, one of the things we often talk about is how do we better help our staff? If we're going to move the middle, we need to focus on people in order to get the things done that we want to get done. And so it's really the people that work for the department that are making the things happen, and just truly grateful to see all the good work that the people are doing.
And that's a message that we want to carry to the staff
Absolutely.
when they watch this.
Yes.
We're not going to require it, but we're going to encourage them to watch it if they can. Well, thank you for joining us for this year-end podcast, and it's nice to see you. And it's a little bit difficult to do this, isn't it, because we're in the middle of a lot of things we want to talk about moving forward, but we're going to be doing plenty of podcasts moving forward, too. So for now, thank you for your time. Thank you for your leadership and support, Jared and Spencer, and we will talk to you next time here on Conversations with Corrections. Remember, we're here working together, transforming lives, and protecting communities. See you next time.
This has been Conversations with Corrections from the Utah Department of Corrections. These podcasts are on our website at corrections.utah.gov or on the UDC YouTube page. Suggestions for a future topic can be sent to corrections@utah.gov. Thank you for joining us.